All right, everyone. Welcome to the Juneteenth Black Arts panel. Um, we've had a little technical difficulties. This is the arts panel, so we're magical here. And also, Mercury is in retrograde, and we decided to launch a virtual Juneteenth celebration. So please bear with us. This is going to be a nice, easy, breezy talk about our Black joy, nurturing it in these times of revolution. Right now, we're still awaiting one of our panelists, the esteemed Mr. Emory Douglas. He will be joining us. We're going to find him in this digital verse. But in the meantime, I'm going to kick it off to our moderator for this evening, Darren, and he will open the space for the intro to the rest of our panelists. So thank you so much for being here. Yeah, Darren?
Hey, thank you. And I want to thank all the family here. And I have no access right now to who's watching, but we welcome you all the same. This is all so exciting. It feels different this time. Something going on in the air. And so the operative word is a celebration. I mean, there's fireworks going on every night on both coasts, all over. There's something electric happening in this moment, and we're here celebrating it through this context of balance because there's so much activity going out, and now more than ever is a time for focus, discipline, alignment, stuff to get us through all the changing. So we have some Black art workers here. Everyone here is in the work, has been in the work. And if you don't mind, just keep it easy, easy. Just go around and just give a quick introduction of who you are and what magic you bring. I'll start with Ms. Sophia Dawson.
Okay, I had a feeling you were going to say that. So, hi, y'all. My name is Sophia Dawson. I am an artist, mother, believer, activist, and facilitator. And I do large-scale murals, facilitate art classes, usually with court-involved young people, Rikers as well. And yeah, there's a couple of other things, but that's exactly what's important for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Hey, you're broadcasting from New York today. You're in Brooklyn. Where you at?
Brooklyn.
Okay. Miss home. Miss it. Haven't been there in a minute. Mr. D. Watts.
What's up? My name is Daniel J. Watts, aka D. Watts. I'm an artist. You can put, there are boxes that say actor and dancer and spoken word artist, but I like to just say artist. I like to communicate through expression. I primarily work on Broadway. Most recently, I was Ike Turner in the Tina Turner musical on Broadway. Hey, but we're shut down right now, so I'm mostly doing work online. I have a one-man show called The Jam, which is happening June 29th on BT Plus Live, Instagram Live, but we'll talk about that later. But anyway, that's me.
Beautiful. My lovely, lovely Miss Trae Harris.
Hi, I am Trae Harris. I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland. And cemented in a lot of ways my career in New York and Brooklyn, and I am recently a resident of Los Angeles. I'm broadcasting from LA today. I like to use the term performance artist because most of the artwork that I share with the world is through performance, but I'm also a writer, and a lot of my writing has been centered around poetry, but I've been shifting into screenwriting, and I wrote a short film, and I just finished writing a feature film that we're looking to start shooting next year. So film and poetry and finding those mediums as a vehicle for healing and doing healing work around natal charts and astrology and the body and the mind, and merging all of those things together is really what feels most direct in terms of what I do as an artist. but generally I like to just say performance artist and writer.
And then we're holding for Mr. Emory Douglas, but let's get into us celebrating joy during the Juneteenth or Freedom Day. My question, I just wanted to go around. What would you say during this whole, first there was this pandemic experience that we've had, a quarantine experience, and now this huge political, economic, ancestral, huge moment for all of us. So this is a lot of experiences that were just getting thrown one after the other. Regarding yourself, what have you been discovering or observing about yourself, your heart, your mind during all of these shifting times?
You gonna pick, or we just gotta jump in?
Sorry, no, my bad.
I'm a ladies first kind of man. I was waiting. I was like, I'm gonna wait.
Okay, that's nice. We appreciate you.
Sophia, please.
Okay. What have I observed? Well, I mean, I'm a mom. I have a 10-year-old, and so the beginning of all of this was just me trying to figure out, like, you know, my son, from the time he was born, we've been out, like, after day 7, because I have to provide for him. I've always had to work. And so I've been able to keep working by the grace of God and teaching and stuff like that, but just, like, really figuring out space, you know, and being intentional and making eye contact with him. And I live with my mom and my father, too. So it's like the beginning of this was me, like, adjusting to not having a studio to run away to and without a door to lock. It's been hard. Like, I spent this past week, we're working on a mural on this roof, and I was like, oh my God, I could stretch. I could do this and not have somebody bump into me. And so that was the beginning of it. But one thing I've noticed is that, you know, as a believer, like, we always talk about God-given peace that passes all understanding, and you quote it just verbatim, but not realizing what that meant until everybody really lost their peace. You know, the beginning of this, I was like, wow, it is possible to be in the midst of a plague, because this pandemic is a plague. It is possible to be in the midst of chaos, storm, and really carry peace. Like, really wake up and still find something to have, like, smile about, laugh about. Like, my son, like, you know, he had a couple of days when he was kind of down. He's made more art during this pandemic than I had, first of all, because he don't use up all my supplies. But, like, it's crazy how, like, peace is something that you can't buy. It's something that no one can give it to you. And I think a lot of people were touched by the pandemic, by the circumstances, by the economy. And it's not that I haven't been, but nothing that touched me was able to touch my peace. And that's one thing that I've been very grateful to God for. And I'm like, wow, this is when you start walking in the scripture you've been quoting your whole life, just because you thought it was cute. Now it's real. And so that's been a big part of it for me. And then I think remembering, so, like, as things shifted to, you know, our attention on the current movements, you know, I've spent the last 10 years writing folks from the Black Panther movement, the Black Liberation movement that are still politically incarcerated for their activism. By the grace of God, since then, like, 11 people have come home, but there's still like 20, 25 people locked up. And so they've seen all of this, well, not the pandemic part, but they've seen the uprising in their lifetime, and realizing that, you know, it's not new, but persistence does break resistance, and that I have a responsibility. Like, they haven't gotten to a place where they're like, oh, we're passing the baton on to the next generation. They still want to be a part of it. And I'm like, well, if they haven't lost their vim, if they haven't lost their zeal, then, you know, we have no excuse. And so that's something else that I've noticed in this season.
Yeah. Yes. It's your values tend to have more weight now, and I just value my peace of mind like I've never had my peace before. It's like peace of mind before anything because of all of this stuff and movements that was going on. Trae, any kind of illuminating self-discoveries during these seasons?
I've definitely found that I am a lot more grounded than I think I give myself credit for. I think it's been for me a time of being able to give myself credit and really ground in my gratitude for my work and my practices over the years that has really been able to be of support and be affirming during this time. I found myself having moments of being like, I'm so glad that I've been doing the work that I've been doing internally in terms of like what my focus looks like, how I ground in my emotions, how I check in with myself, how I'm able to be present with what I feel, acknowledge it, and then process through it, however long that takes. I feel like during this time, things happening, things seem to be happening in such a vacuum. It seems to be happening so intensely in this moment. However, things have been happening over and over and over for all the years leading up to this. So it's not anything actually new. It's just energetically, there's been a shift and people are processing and feeling the things differently. And I definitely feel like I'm feeling all of that with everyone, but there's also a groundedness that I've been able to connect to during this time that's been really productive for me. So I've been actually able to get a lot done in terms of my own personal writing, because without the distractions or without the force or the necessity to have to go out and do certain things, it's giving me space to be able to actually refocus and rechannel. And I've felt privileged to be able to share that with my friends and family that are around.
Yes.
To like not only acknowledge the fact that this is a time that we have to be reflective, but this is also a time that we can, if we choose to redirect the energy, because we can't destroy it, right? It isn't going to go anywhere, but we can try to redirect it and use it in a different way. And that's what I've been doing during this time, and that's what has been like a bit of a reminder, and that's been interesting.
Yes, yes. And there's also too, you remember when we were talking earlier, like last month or whatever, he's like, yeah, when I was biking, like I didn't realize I was that strong. Like I'm strong.
That was another super amazing moment of realization, like deciding like I'm gonna get a bike, I'm gonna brave the hills of Los Angeles, and it's gonna kick my ass, but I'm gonna be able to do it. And one day you just get on your bike and you hit 15 miles and you're like, oh, that was nothing. Okay, tomorrow I can do 20. And like just realizing things about myself that I felt like I didn't have time to realize, or I didn't have space to acknowledge. Like I've been giving myself that space and that time when I could be doing other things like stressing about money or worried about the next gig. I've been really refocusing on me and what I do have, and reevaluating my productivity, and really reminding myself that I don't need to base my the way that I value myself on my productivity, but value it on what I actually feel about me and what I actually feel like I can do for myself. I can ride 15 miles on my bike. I feel really good about that.
Yes, yes. Celebrate it. Celebrate it. And Brother Watts, I know you've been doing this deep reflective work with, the jam for like long time. So, I remember like pieces like you going through the attic and you're just digging deep and just expressing from a very vulnerable and a very authentic space. So like Trae was saying, there's not too much new going on, but
Yeah.
with your self-discovery or your self-reflection in this current, like anything new?
Yeah, new in the way of like, when everything shut down, like I was in the space of like, I felt that I was on a hamster wheel that I didn't know how to get off, and I needed the world to shut down so that I could get off the wheel, and I hate that. I hate that that's what it was, but I just didn't know how to do it. And so when it shut down, I kind of was like,
where you at?
Kind of just disappeared. I got off the internet. I mean, I got off the socials. Like I just kind of like went in for a little bit, which is rare, again, rare for me, but something that I knew that I needed to do and that I wanted to do. And then I kind of started to like focus on like my house, which is like this house, and then also this house. Like, what's in here that I don't need anymore? What's
Facts.
in here that actually I've been neglecting and actually need to pay more attention to? Like, what books have I not read? What, what parts of me have I not investigated? Have I not that need attention? Um, and then which was great. Like the first 2 months, I didn't feel at all. I didn't feel bad about disappearing at all. And then it wasn't until the Ahmaud Arbery information started swirling around that then I immediately I felt my silence.
Yep. Yeah, we were
Um,
just talking about that.
I talked about it in the jam. Like I felt and there was a part of me that was like, I'm not gonna feel bad about this. I've been yelling about this stuff for years. The
Right.
other side is that there is, you know, trying to balance my sense of responsibility and duty because it's a space that I've chosen to occupy, and sort of I've chosen to be be a voice when other people don't necessarily know how to be it. And so I found myself wrestling with that for the first time. Like, do I still want to be a voice even though I'm tired? And and what does that mean?
Exactly.
And what does that mean? And also, if you're operating from a sense of duty and purpose, then that fatigue isn't real. It's something else. And that's when I realized, like, oh, I'm tired of talking and feeling stupid when I talk. I'm tired of talking and feeling like I'm not being heard. So I'm not really exhausted from the work. I'm exhausted from the seeds or what I perceive to be the fruits of the work or the seeds of the labor. So once I got over myself and got back into the sense of duty and purpose, it doesn't matter what comes of what I do. I just have to do. And I don't think I would have had, if I didn't have that 2 months prior to really tap into that. Like if the second pandemic being Black folks getting killed and we paying attention to it, if the second pandemic had happened exactly at the same time as the first pandemic, I don't know how I would have operated. So it needed the breath.
Yeah, it's everything feels so climactic and the stakes
Yeah.
just feel so at 10, and then you realize that frequency is what zaps you. It's so like, I know Trae and we were talking about, like, I could have like a really great Tuesday, like I did everything, I feel it like really really chill, but I have to do a little bit like my work, so I have to integrate with society a little bit today. I just gotta. And then you just feel like it's a complete energy shift that really affects the body hard. And so that's just something very, very challenging. Now, let's talk, if we have the time so far, because I don't know what Mr. Douglas is, but I would say this has been a challenge for like every relationship in my life because of A, I just moved across the country. B, the world shut down. Now the grand uprising. That's, speaking with mom or dad or sister or brother or whomever, ex-lovers that show up out of um, the various peoples in your life. I know you talk about your son. Anything going on in relationships that have been like really, I don't know, something beautiful to celebrate, or just wisdom that's coming out of these current relationships in your life? Anyone?
I mean, I could share a little bit. I think one thing that stood out or that I've noticed is that in being still, like I said before, I'm able to pay attention more to the folks that are around me, not only to my family, but like, letter writing is what kicked off the last decade of my career. And prior to the pandemic, I was behind on a lot of letters. And like one thing that, the Holy Spirit has led me to do during this season is to actually go back and revisit my letters, like a decade of letters that have just been sitting in file cabinets. And just like getting back to being present, and speaking with some of the elders who have come home from prison, it was interesting because at the beginning of the pandemic, I was on a call. I called to speak to one person. I ended up on the phone with like 4 or 5 people. But we're talking about people from the MOVE organization. I don't know if y'all familiar with MOVE, but you know, the house that was bombed back in Philly in 1985, if I'm not mistaken. So there were 9 people from MOVE arrested, incarcerated. 2 of them unfortunately passed away. It's believed by foul play in prison, but 7 came home. Just a few months ago, the last person came home. Unfortunately, this past Monday, he also passed away. And so we're talking about 40 years, 39 years, 42 years of maintaining your innocence and still being in prison. So it's funny because I got on the phone with them just to see how they're doing. I was like, let me call every elder that I know and make sure they're okay. And they were comparing the behavior of specifically people in New York, people in Brooklyn and Philly. So like how things go down in prison when there's going to be a fight the next day. Like when you know something's about to happen the next day, they're like, here you go, you buy up all the toilet paper, you get real paranoid, nobody wants to talk to anybody else. And they felt so prepared for the pandemic, having been forced to be in one place for so long, but also they were like, wow, the same thing happening outside that it was happening when we were still locked up. And I thought that was such an interesting conversation that I do want to continue to have, because every person I spoke to that spent time was like, yeah, it's not that serious. Not the illness part, but the restrictions part, and like just like, yeah, you're not gonna like you'll be able to get toilet paper from somewhere. You don't need to buy up all the toilet paper. But they were saying that's basically what happened. I just thought it was funny. That was one of the interesting conversations I had.
Were some of these elders Caribbean?
What'd you say?
Some of these elders Caribbean?
Some of them, yes, please.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds so. Trae, relationships and our discoveries that whole.
You know what has been really beautiful for me? This time has just really presented so many moments for me to ground myself in gratitude. Like, it's been crazy. I have difficulty around articulating my love language because I often feel like I don't subscribe to what they say the love languages are. However, I rediscovered that gifts and giving of gifts is one of my love languages. But that was an internal thing that I rediscovered. However, the universe was feeling that because I've been receiving so many gifts, like in the mail. Just people have been sending me things, like women, other witches, other creatives, other artists, other makers have just been like gifting me things to be like, I hope you're well. I appreciate what you do and what you offer. I appreciate your presence. And like, that's been really amazing to experience and to receive. And it's made me feel really warm and feel really, really loved. And that's been really great because I've really been missing seeing everyone, all my people and family and friends back on the East Coast, and then feeling like I'm stuck on the West Coast is different than choosing to be on the West Coast. So it's been nice to get those messages or to just get random FaceTime calls or the text messages, like people's humanity that are in my circle and in my field of like reach has been amazing and has been really, really beautiful. And I've been really grateful for the community that I've been able to cultivate and how they've really showed up for each other, and then definitely for me during this time.
Yes. The community is your immunity.
Thank you so much.
And we're surrounded by love. And I keep, feeling disconnected. Like, when you really, as you say, ground yourself in gratitude, you realize that you are just like literally surrounded. The universe is present, if it's a choice. So, okay,
Hey,
Shannon.
Darren, can I chime in real quick?
Yes.
Hi. So I just want to make everyone aware that our last panelist is joining. I just want to give a big warm welcome to you, Mr. Douglas. Thank you so much for joining us today. I see you're on the phone. Let you wrap up. We had a lot of tech difficulties, y'all. Thank you for bearing with us. And we'll give you some time to do a brief intro and catch you up on what the discussion has been so far.
Okay. So coming in loud and clear, is everyone connected?
I'll go.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And
I
then
cover. Brother Douglas, I got you. I found that a lot of I hope this doesn't sound crazy, or pompous, but in many ways, I felt like I've been preparing for pandemic times my whole life. And what I mean by that is that I'm an only child, and I've kind of thrown myself, even not even throwing myself, as artists, we kind of don't know when we live in uncertain times for the most part. Like, we don't know what the next gig is going to be. I think what has really been taken from us is the potential of the next gig, more than anything. So like I found that I was kind of coaching some of my friends through this time. Like I was like, oh, this is, and not necessarily trying to tell people what to do, but like, like I was like, you kind of got to just sit. Like, this is like, I know people were trying to do stuff. It's like, don't try to do, you're going to burn out. Like, this is going to last a second, like, so I found myself being a coach in a way that, again, my ability to be by myself is just innate because I was by myself a lot. So like, I can't go anywhere be with a whole bunch of people. Okay. Third grade through 8th grade, so yeah, so I found that a lot of my friendships, that the other side of being an only child is that I can disappear from people very easily. I didn't realize I was ghosting, but I'm not used to people checking up or having to be accountable for anybody or anyone be accountable for me. So I could and go and be like, oh, I was with myself, So it's actually forced me to actually be there in ways that I haven't ever really had to be. For people, like a lot of my friends who are used to me being on some only child shit, they're like, no, you can't run right now. You can't run right now.
Wow.
You can't run right now because actually I need you right now. And it's like, oh, okay, got it. So that's really what I've been learning a lot is that. Learning a different way of community because I'm used to this kind of world and disappearing into my
I hear it now. Okay, well now it comes up. When I open the rate, just keep reading up.
I love it.
Hi.
Is that
Mr.
good?
Douglas, we can hear you now.
Okay, thank you.
Hey.
Perfect time.
Good afternoon,
okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Douglas. Thank you so much for joining us. We can finally hear you. I'm sorry about all the technical issues. Oh, yep.
Hello?
Hello? Who's that?
Whatever. Okay. Hey.
We can hear you.
We can hear you now. Yeah, Mr. Douglas, Mr. Emory Douglas, we can hear you, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I wanted to bring you into this wonderful discussion that we're having. We have been anticipating your arrival. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We already did some intros with our moderator, who's Darren, and the rest of the panelists, but we can do maybe another brief round of intros and give you some space to talk. I would just love to let you speak a little bit. Thank you for joining us about your Black joy in this revolution.
Okay.
Yes. Hello, Brother Douglas. I'm Darren Mallet. Hi. I'm a co-founder here at the House of Ease, and born in '84, Brooklyn. And my mom, during that time, was a Black nationalist in the sense that she really was teaching me about Marcus Garvey, and we had a special relationship with the Caribbean. But your work, your revolutionary work, was always in my universe. And to have this moment with you is quite lovely. So thank you. I'm going to hand the mic over to whomever takes it.
if you can, please, Mr. Douglas, can you give us a brief intro, a little bit of backstory about you and your work? Thank you.
Oh, you want me? Oh,
yes, we really
okay.
yes, we would like to speak.
Okay. Well. My work comes out of the Black Arts Movement and the Black Panther Party, in the context of being around social justice and issues that are relevant to the challenges that the African American Black community is confronted with on a daily basis. It's about transforming the colonization of the imagination, so that it's breaking the mental bondage in relationship to how we think and view ourselves and how we see the struggle itself, cutting through the smoke screen of external forces what are trying to program us into how we should think about what is Black consciousness and Black awareness and what is revolutionary. And we're doing it for ourselves. I do that through the history about, because our history is one of a reflection of history of resistance, and also it's so therefore my work is like a continuation of that ongoing struggle, because you have the many issues today, like Brother Floyd, which has been the spark that has lit the prairie fire for the resistance that's taking place in Black Lives Matter and beyond in that context. And so my art is also like a weapon, a tool, but it's a visual interpretation of the struggle. And so that's and reflection of what is existing at that time. It's not independent or separate from the politics and the social justice movement. It's the reflection of that in its context and its content.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I am very inspired by your history. I know that you began working and making your print while in San Francisco when you were incarcerated as a youth. And I found that very, very interesting. And Sophia works with, she has her letter writing campaign and she does murals of formerly incarcerated Panthers. And I just think it's a beautiful connection between the two of you and your work, which is all like your visual artistry. And we have other performance artists on this call as well. So yeah, I just really appreciate the type of connections that we can make here today and build with our Black art.
It's so good to see you, Emory.
Likewise.
God bless you. He's been like an unofficial mentor. I slide in his email all the time whenever I'm confused about doing something creative. And whenever he comes to New York, he's always trying to figure out a way to get me a +1 ticket to something. And I'm very, very grateful to have the opportunity to have met you and known you. I look up to you and I honor you, OD.
No, thank you. Thank you. And I've been inspired by the work that you've been doing as well, for sure. Because this ongoing, continuous process.
Yes.
And the joy comes out of the things that we can contribute to that process, and to enlighten and inform the unenlightened and the uninformed. We should not always try to talk to the choir, but we should be trying to talk to those who are not informed and enlightened.
Yes, please.
Yes. Brother Watts, I know you have a connection to his work, Brother Douglas's work. Is there anything that I would just love to hear you guys in dialogue? I know you got something in your brain.
Man, I got everything in my brain. Like,
That's
I'm
right.
I'm trying to be cool right now. I'm like, Emory Douglas, y'all. I'm trying to be so cool right now. I'm trying to be so cool, and it's not really happening. It's not. I literally spent my birthday at the Schoenberg, like just all day on my birthday 3 years ago, just looking at just in your stuff. And anytime I know what's happening or if it's on exhibit somewhere, I'm like, I'm there just because I'm fascinated by the Black arts movement. I'm fascinated of how it flipped, from it got very black very fast. And very empowering, and and to know like what was running concurrent and synonymous with the Black Panther movement and the BLA and Nikki Giovanni, and trying to shed all this old stuff, and not knowledge of self was this very, very important thing that I don't think anybody really understood. Like, oh, there's the other side of us. And I feel like your artwork always encapsulated the power of that, whether it's the mother with the child, whether it's the sister with the bazooka, like it always carried a lot of, just looking at it, carried a lot of power and a lot of weight. And I understand why people were terrified of it, because there was so much power in it. Thank you is the main thing I have to say is,
Right.
thank you for exhibiting that, for doing that work, and especially at a time when it definitely wasn't popular, by any stretch of the imagination. It was and dangerous, not only unpopular but also dangerous. So thank you for
All right. Well, that it was not just the me art, but the we art. It was just out of a movement, and being a part of the movement in the Black Panther Party, you had support at all times in the context of what you were about and what you were doing. At the same time, the art itself, power of it comes from the people, reinterpreting those feelings and what they're feeling, and they listening and observing, and then integrating that into your art itself. And then if they look at it, if they admire, like it, or what have you, then they begin to become the heroes on the stage in the art.
Yeah.
And it's something bigger than yourself, but it's an interconnection, not just an abstraction divorced from that reality, but interconnected to that reality and concern of daily life, quality of life of Black folks. Yeah.
That's what I feel like we're missing. Like when people ask, like this time feels hopeful, it feels different, but there's something missing, and I think it sounds like it's that.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how you do it, design it, that should always try to consider that.
Yeah.
In the art form, because it's about uplifting, it's about informing and enlightening the community, and I mean that should be the foundation, no matter how you do it.
Yeah, it's the collective part.
Aesthetically beautiful. It doesn't necessarily be extremely provocative, like some of the things I do. It's what the message is, how it says, and how the community relates to it, and embrace it as their own. That's the power of it.
How do we?
Go ahead. They can understand it.
Yes.
I'm a Carl Cabral, Black revolutionary artist, Guinea-Bissau, once said, we have to be able to speak in a way that even a child can understand this. I contemplated that for a long time, that we may have to perform our art, visual arts, in a way that even a child can get something from it.
Mm-hmm.
You're right.
It doesn't mean that you have to negate the depth or the meaning of what you got in it, but you want to have the young people to be the one, because the young people are the future, like you're the future.
Yes, and if I may, because we were dancing around the topic of performing arts, so I would just like to kind of go back, because I've stopped performing and I focused on being behind the camera and re-entering this current time right now. Like what you're saying, it's the body, everything that my Black and brown body is doing is inherently my art, everything. It provides safety going through any space. So as regarding performance arts and like this current moment, you were about to say something about young people. What do you see happening currently with how we are showing up as a collective? How are we looking?
Well, it's beginning to become very electrifying. You can say it many ways.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, you have to understand that 50 years difference between then and now, the 60s and the 70s and now, you know, you had a whole nother dynamics that you're dealing with today. That's the digital media and all those things, and how you bombarded every day, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, around the clock, with reactionary messages, and being able to understand how not to get trapped into that and become mentally enslaved to that through what creative processes that you do. So that's have to be mindful of that. You have to always guard against those kinds of things as well. The external forces, the reactionary art that you may see, and that don't mean that it's not aesthetically beautiful, but it also can be the trap to distort, confuse you, to sidetrack you from what you want to do. So if it's beautiful and exciting, then you have to make your art beautiful and exciting.
Definitely believe in that beauty.
Yes, beauty.
I just want to name that this movement does look a lot different. I'm gonna answer your question because I'm becoming a panelist too, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
This movement is a lot different from the Panther movement because I believe we are led by and centered around the identities of women and queer people and trans people and people who are on the margins. Because even that movement and its inspiration for me, and I still think of the visuals of the Black Panther Party, like it looked aesthetically sexy. And that was important, but it also was aesthetically very masculine. And that right now, I think we're moving into a more balanced, feminine space where we see women who created Black Lives Matter, the three women who created that, Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tometi. And then we see, like, all over the country, the women who are leading this movement, this moment, and speaking out for the deaths of not only Black men, but Black women, Black trans women, everybody and their mom. I'm actually curious to loop in Trae right now as a performance artist and someone who does use her body and also her mind. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on this moment right now of revolution.
Well, listen, this moment is much more of inclusiveness as it evolved from the 60s. The 60s was a macho, in many ways, led movement. But at the same time, in the Black Panther Party, you had those who were gay in the Black Panther Party. You had a trans who were in the party, who worked but went to prison, left the party, went to prison. So, and we wrote Huey Newton. We got an article in his book, To Die for the People, where we're the first organization that came out and supported gay rights in a document, and that's in the To Die for the People, To Die for, revolutionaries. It's in To Die for the People book, yeah, back in the day. So we always talk about to be a democratic. Talk about you being democracy. I mean, that's inclusive of all genders, everyone.
Everybody.
So that was our position.
Everyone gets to go. And Trae, you were saying, thank you, Trae.
That is wonderful to know and to be aware of. I definitely was not aware that there were trans people who were a part of the Black Panther Party. However,
not a whole lot, but they were a part of the rallies, and there were in the party a few, yes. It wasn't like it was today, yes.
Wonderful. However, I do believe that what Shannon was referencing is undeniable in that this movement that we're a part of does look visually different. Black Lives Matter movement was not just started by 3 Black women, it was started by 3 queer Black women, 3 Black women who are loving on other Black women, which is why it's so important that when they're centering conversations around how things are going to go in terms of like what type of action is going to take place, it has to also include women. It has to also include trans people. And it has to include them with the same type of passion and the same type of effort. And I feel like because now we do have access to social media, which allows us to get and disseminate information a lot more quickly, that we can be a lot more aware of those things that even media doesn't want us to know about, or even media doesn't find to be important. So as a Black woman who's a performer who uses my body, it's important for me in my work that representation of the voices and the bodies and the stories that aren't often told are told. And this poster behind us is not just for me to have my face a second time, right? It's because an amazing piece of work that was revolutionary and critical of movements, specifically when women are putting their lives and their bodies and their voices at the forefront, and male counterparts, Black male counterparts, are doing the same thing in front, but behind are abusing the women. So like, it's important for us to, in these times where we're talking about the joy that we feel grounded in, that we're also acknowledging that, yes, there is also still this pain that a lot of people are still like, yo, but arrest Breonna Taylor's killers though. Like, it's a lot of back and forth, I think, with how we're feeling. So these moments, Darren, of like this high joy, and then these moments of like, damn, but we're still reflecting and still feeling burdened by these ways in which women and trans women aren't being held to the same standard in terms of how the outrage is being showcased, in the way that the outrage is being displayed and presented. Yeah.
I mean, I want to go ahead, Emory.
No, I was just going to say that I work on the board of East Side Arts Alliance, and they got at least a lot of young artists, Black artists, Chicano, Latin people of color. They did a whole mural across the street on the big building of about 8 or 9 trans women who had been murdered. I like that on the International Boulevard, you know.
Wow.
So, yeah. You might can go online, you see it, yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, like, historically, I was gonna add that, like, just like historically, I think that there are the people who are behind the cameras that are documenting these movements. You know, from working with the Panthers over the past decade, I even had the privilege of working closely with the women of the Young Lords movement. And it's true that as those movements were being documented and archived through video and photography, they were focusing on the men, but there's always been like a strong core of women that were doing the work. And I think that what I've seen, or what I feel, is a big difference between how movements look now and how they look back then, is that, you know, the rage is important and plays a part. And then there's also this part of service, right? And what I admire most about the Panthers and even the Young Lords is that they're like, when I interviewed some of them, they're like, yeah, we were 16 and we got up every day and we said goodbye to our family because we knew that we might not come home. And we were okay with that. 13, 15, 16-year-old women and men. And like, you know, what you can't get up every day at 5 a.m. and feed 10,000 children across the country free breakfast from a place of rage. That comes from a service of love. That comes from a place of love. And I think that part is what I would really want to be included in what's going on as far as the movement. There was no free breakfast in schools. That did not exist before the Black Panther Party. There were no free health clinics in this country before the Black Panther Party. And so if they were free, that means that people were not looking for a check. People were getting up every day, and out of the love that they had for people, they were doing this work. And I believe that a lot of those efforts were organized by the women. And even to this day, I think a lot of women from those movements have not been given the opportunity to share their stories, which is why, you know, when the Bronx Museum did the Women of the Young Lords exhibit, it was a big deal because they're like, yeah, nobody ever asked us what happened, but they existed. And I think that that's just something that I wanted to note, that they've always played a critical role, but maybe not been in the media like that.
Well, you know, always historically in the party, women have always demanded their place. This in the early days, and very early on, they had women who saying, "Well, we get killed, we get put in jail where is our position? And all those things took place. Those debates and discussions took place in the Black Panther Party early on. I'm talking about 6 or 7, the latter part of when the party began to evolve and grow. When that first cadre developed, the first group of women, the first woman to go on security on the patrols was Tarika Lewis, Matalaba, the artist that used to work with me, the first sister artist in the Black Panther movement. She went on the patrol when she was 16 years old. When she came into the party, she went out there with patrols as well. So there's always there's a lot of things that people don't hear on a broad scale, you know, in that context. Yeah, but and that doesn't negate the chauvinism. That doesn't negate that didn't exist, and that there were those challenges that when they happened that we had to deal with to overcome those kind of things, or put things in place in the context of those brothers who didn't want to work with sisters, or who were using the B word or misusing you know, those kinds of things, where they had to directives came down in the context of that, how we in the political educations, how people we should deal respectfully and mindful of each other, irregardless of sex and what have you. And there was a time when brothers came in and wanted to take orders or do work from a sister, had to was directed to work under that sister. So you learn to appreciate and respect the sister, because we were a part of each other's halves in the context of things evolving. If you don't have that mindful respectfulness and stuff, the thing would have collapsed left in 6 months. So you have to put policies and evolve and grow and develop in that context. And we had early on, you had sisters who always did speaking in the party. You had Kathleen Cleveland. You had many others on the grassroots level and you had sisters who you know, was all part of all phases of the Black Panther Party. You know, yeah. But then also it was how the media, in the context of the media itself, were pushing that whole dynamics of the male leadership or the so-called self-defense image as totally male, nothing else, which was far from the truth. Because when we even went to Sacramento to observe the legislation, there were women who were part of that delegation who went to Sacramento. But what you see is all men. No women was patrolling with the guns a second, but they went there because you had family from the sisters from the Dow family, this young brother who had been murdered. His family, sisters and brothers went to Sacramento. Bobby Seale's wife was there. Artie Seale, his first wife, was there. So there were, you know, but you don't see that. You don't see that on the media, you know. So you get to assume that it was absolutely male organization, which you did start off male-dominated organization. But then we had people who come in with skills, who had abilities and administrative skills, much more than the brothers who came out the street and what have you, and went to school. So you had sisters who came in the party who had those skills. You also had women who came in and enlightened us in how to set up our school itself. We had, you know, mentored us in the sense of how that whole institution should have been set up. So it was always, in some aspect, in some ways, you had women were interconnected and very integral part of what took place in the Black Panther Party.
Yeah. Thank you.
We are celebrating joy currently. Shannon, time check. Where are we? Is it time to open up the floor? Blah, blah, blah. And then Mr. Watts. Yes.
I gotta go.
Yes. Final word.
And I'm mad about it. I'm mad about it. I'm over here like.
You ghosting, bro?
Ghosting. Don't do me like that. Don't do me dirty like that.
You told us about yourself.
No. We know you know, but nah, man.
Oh man, I gotta go. I gotta finish this BET stuff. I'll thank y'all for thank y'all for having me in here. Like just
Everyone
call me
follow
back.
Daniel on Instagram and Twitter, Daniel J. Watts.
Hey, it's
When
nice to
Broadway
meet y'all. Hold
reopens,
it
go
down.
see him as Ike Turner.
Stay black.
Yes, stay black. Yeah, and then
Stay queer.
so much to talk
stay
about.
all of it. Stay all of it.
Right.
God
Stay.
bless you, Emory. I'll give you a call.
Okay, quickly. So we're overtime, obviously. It's past 5 o'clock. I would like to give at least 10 minutes of time to our audience. Darren, if you'd like to offer one more question, and maybe we can let our panelists speak a bit, and then we can open it up to the audience, and then we can wrap this up at 5:20, if that's okay.
Okay, everyone cool with the timing? Yeah. Okay.
I can do 10 more minutes.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
10 and under even. Okay, thank you. I don't have a way to get the questions, so am I deferring to you, Shannon, with where the questions are coming from?
Okay, great. So let's just open it up to our audience Q&A, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So it's the chat. God bless chat. So this is me pretending to know what I'm doing, my darling. When I tell you, I don't know how to get that. How do I get to the questions, my lover?
They will be in the Q&A section. Yeah, we're opening the floor. There are none right now. So if you'd like to offer one of your questions,
well, we can
wrap up this.
Yeah. Again, well, I mean, and kind of to wrap this guy up, we're shifting our energy towards the joy, and we're celebrating where we are today. We're saying that we're basing a lot of our work in gratitude and understanding the importance of maintaining ourselves and our mental selves and being from a place of just mental strength and dexterity. So any last bit of wisdom from everyone, just a little nugget of joyful wisdom of ways to, because it's going to be a marathon, how to continue to keep it cute during these all the goings. And thank you again.
So for me, like I said, maybe I did not mention this in the beginning, but I am a believer. I believe that I have a God-given gift. I believe that God-given gifts are meant to serve other people, to serve humanity, and that there are so many benefits and joy and peace, things that you can't pay for. Like, that's what my pastor always says. Like, when you serve God, the return that you get is, you can't buy it with money. So like I said, peace, joy, fulfillment. Go to sleep feeling full, not feeling empty. Go to sleep feeling like, wow, if you could live every day as if it's your last day and make it count. But when you are self-serving, when you're trying to get the likes, when you're trying to blow up on the gram, when you're trying to get all of them things, it's empty, and you'll never stick to what you were called to do if you do it from a place of greed and self-gain. And so I found that, a little bit of obedience, like just saying yes, like, oh, you want me to write letters to folks who are in prison? Okay, yes. Me saying yes to that 10 years ago is what kicked off the last 10 years of my career as an artist. And it was a simple gesture. And there have been a lot of instructions since then, and that's what brought me to where I'm at right now, even on this roof, with this painting that has to get done. This is a portrait of a young George Floyd in his mother's arms. I'll share a bigger picture on my Instagram later. But yeah, I think, to me, my whole faith, my whole trust, my whole walk, my career, my lifestyle, my ministry, my service is all wrapped up in my connection with God. And that is what keeps me going, and I'm always blessed. If I don't work for 6 months, I'm still blessed. Everything's taken care of. You know, you can't pay for good children. You can't pay for children that don't lose their marbles during a 90-day pandemic. You can't pay for that. You can't pay for joy and peace in the midst of a storm. You can't pay for that. But in service, all of those things are given to you freely. And so if you're not in service, if you haven't found a way to put your own problems down and think about someone else, then you probably will continue to repeat whatever cycle you're in life. And that's all I'll say.
Is that it?
You want to go next?
Trae, any final wisdom?
Well, I would say we also, as a, when joy is put in a context, joy should be something that you always recognize the oppression of others. Yeah, and it should be a vehicle to communicate truth about social concerns. That brings the joy to me. That's my, yeah.
The truth. Got you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Shannon, Shird, and Trae, last benedictions.
I think I just want to say that for me, joy just always goes back to being grateful and gratitude. Grateful for waking up in the morning, grateful for whatever bit of food you have in the fridge, grateful for whatever community you've been able to cultivate. And when I don't have much, I go back to being in gratitude for what I do have. So that's what's been getting me through this time. And that's what I offer to anyone who's feeling like, damn, today's that day where I'm just like, I can't take it. Be grateful for what you have, sit in that gratitude, and you'll get it tomorrow.
Yes, yes,
yes. Thank
yes.
you. I'm grateful for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that joy for me is one, something that I am, because my parents named me Shannon J. Shird. And I have to remember that because, and claim my personal narrative, for years I was Shannon Shird because I wanted to be seen as more masculine and aggressive and powerful in my way. And I dropped it and I thought it was too feminine and girly, but a few years ago, I decided to reclaim my joy and remember who I am. And that has led to a lot of growth and expansion and abundance in my life. And I think remembering who I am, my personal narrative, and connecting to that always, and remembering all of that I came out of and I have gotten through and over and under, and that brings me back to center, to self, to listen to the voice inside of me that ultimately knows what's right. So,
yes, yes.
I get my joy.
Yes, reclaiming your joy. Yes, because we be forgetting sometimes. So yes, yes. I feel like this has been a proper celebration of our Black joy on this beautiful Juneteenth 2020. Brother Emory Douglas, thank you again. I appreciate your time. And thank you for being flexible with us and going back on this internet space. Trae, boo, my neighbor, I need to see you soon. Sophia Dawson, thank you. You're gorgeous, and I would love to continue to see the development of that mural. Shannon, boo, all love. Thank you to the rest of the House of Ease.
Love you guys.
And all that good stuff.
Love you. Love you.
Thank you guys so much. And you can get video and audio of this on houseofease.com after today. Feel free to donate and share with your friends if you feel so inclined. Percentage of proceeds go to the Black trans protesters. Thank you all so much. I wish we had like 3 more hours to talk, but we can maybe do this again in the future. So thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.